Insurance contract disclosures carefully before making a purchase decision. Rates and returns mentioned on this program may vary based on state availability and are subject to change without notice.
This show is also sponsored by Dr. Tony Maglione. Dr. Tony is a cardiologist practicing in Wilmington. He accepts Medicare patients, and his office is located across the street from New Hanover Regional Medical Center at 2032 17th Street. The office number is 202-1071. Dr. Tony is an author whose last book is Rules for Conservative Patriots, and it can be purchased on Amazon. His website is www.drtonymag.com.
Let MusicRewind.com transport you back to another era with 100 wartime memories. Enjoy the original recordings from the greatest artists from that time period, such as the Andrews Sisters, Duke Ellington, Dinah Shore, Glenn Miller, Doris Day, the Ink Spots, plus many more.
He's in the army now, a blowing reveille. He's the boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B.
Order 100 wartime memories now at MusicRewind.com or call 800-206-5002 and pay only $21.98, an unbelievable value for 100 songs on 4 CDs. Plus, get a bonus of reduced shipping. Just enter or mention promo code WARTIME55. Go to MusicRewind.com or call 800-206-5002 now. Don't forget promo code WARTIME55. This offer is available for a limited time to U.S. residents only and cannot be combined with any other offer.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
If you want to talk about culture and politics without all the caterwauling, then you'll love Hertel Radio with me, your host, Andrew Donaldson, every weekday morning, 6 a.m. with a replay at 3 p.m. right here on the Big Talker. Catch it on the Listen Live tab on the app or watch on the Facebook page.
Glad to have you back. It's a Tuesday night at 6 o'clock. We're on the air again. You can catch us tonight. If you're listening already, you're on Facebook, and you're at the Facebook Big Talker site, 1067, and you're looking at us live, and God bless you for looking at us live. That's a good thing. Those of you who may want to watch us again, you can either watch it again during the week on the same station, or you can go to YouTube and pick us up there under just All Things Brunswick. So we welcome you to a great show again, and I want to welcome my co-hosts back, and they are... Go ahead.
Mary Stillwell.
And Dan Roman, glad to be back after missing the last couple of weeks.
Welcome back, Dan.
We're glad to say that Dan's wife, Lori, is doing very, very well now. The surgery went well. They've added 6 inches to her height, so she's now just short.
And I had a full head of hair before her surgery, and now it's all gone because she's been driving me crazy.
Not a drive, it's a short walk, but we'll leave that one alone. Anyway, with our first guest tonight, I'm going to let Mary introduce him since she did all this hard work.
Okay, tonight we have Preston Hilton. Thank you very much for coming.
For having.
Preston is is running for district court judge of the Tri-County. Preston grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina. He graduated from South Mecklenburg High School, attended the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, and received a degree in criminal justice. He interned with the law office of Norman Butler during his semesters, a Charlotte criminal defense firm. During the summers, he spent his time as a law clerk for our late senior resident court judge, Superior Court Judge, the Honorable Ola Lewis. His wife and his son and Preston live in Leland. And for the past 8 years, he has practiced law in Brunswick County with the law firm of Wright, Worley, Pope, Exeter, and Moss. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, ma'am. Quite a mouthful. Yes,
Thank you.
well,
His time in private practice has allowed him to litigate many criminal and civil bench and jury trials through verdicts in both district and superior court. With this experience, he believes he will understand criminal, civil, substantive, and procedural law to best serve the citizens of Bladen, Columbus, and Brunswick counties. He enjoys volunteering with communities and schools and participating in both Lawyers for Literacy and the Brunswick County Teen Court. Since 2013, he has been an active volunteer with the Legal Aid of North Carolina. He has had the honor of serving as Brunswick County's treatment court attorney, originally appointed by Judge Ola Lewis in 2013. He has served as an attorney for those afflicted with mental health and substance abuse. As a North Carolina District Court, he would apply competent evidence in an objective and impartial manner to the law by the General Assembly, the representatives of the people. He wishes to continue his service to his community as a district court judge, and he looks forward to continued communication and the addressing of any questions or concerns that you, the public, may have.
thank you very much, ma'am.
That's quite a bio,
Quite-
Preston.
Quite the introduction there.
I'm impressed. Thank you.
Welcome, welcome. Tell us why you decided that it is time to run for this position.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is quite an honor. I've never been on radio, so this is certainly a new experience for me. But the reason I felt like now is the time is, I've never run for politics. I recognize that there's a lot of variables that go into choosing to run for politics, in any aspect that you would run in. I originally I've always wanted to be a judge. It's been a consideration of mine, especially since working with Judge Lewis. I got to see, from that perspective, the impact you can have on people's lives and on the community. Many people know her. She was very much a mentor to me and quite a force to be reckoned with. But that really just sort of solidified my desire to become a judge at some point. And I'll be honest, at that time, it was a goal of mine to, by the time I turned 40, I'm 37 now, to be in that position to run for judge. It just so happens that in the last couple of years that we've had quite a bit of turnover. Some judges have ascended to higher positions. We're very grateful for that. And some judges have retired. And when that happens and a judge leaves a position or their term unfilled, the governor will appoint somebody. So it was probably about 4 years ago. I think it started with Judge Fred Gore when he ascended to the Court of Appeals. His seat opened up, and some of us put our name in the hat in the local bar. You put your name in the hat, the local bar in Brunswick, Bladen, and Columbus, the attorneys, they vote on that, and those names are sent to the governor, and the governor chooses who he puts in office. Now, he can pick from that list, but frankly, he can really just choose from anybody he wants. But they tend to choose from the list that is given to them. And the first time, I put my name in the hat, and Judge Calvin Chandler did as well. Well, I recognized that Judge Calvin Chandler had greater experience than I did. And I took my name out of the hat and deferred to him and said, he's certainly the more experienced and competent judge, and I would certainly support his bid. So he was appointed. And this, most recently, I think it was Judge Fairley who retired. And, the way politics work, you sort of hear who's running, who sort of wants to put their name in the hat. And I felt, based on what I was hearing, that it was a good time for me to step up and put my name in the hat, based on who I knew also wanted it. At that time, it was Judge Quentin McGee, or District Attorney Quentin McGee, and Sarah McPherson. Both of them are district attorneys. Both of them are formidable district attorneys, very experienced in their practice. But I felt that I brought something different, something that my clients over the years of litigating would appreciate. And that was an experience in civil practice. That is everything other than criminal law. You know, a district court judge, I've described him really as the Swiss Army blade of the judicial system, the courtroom, because they see everything. I mean, they get the gravamen of cases. 80% of the cases that come through the court, the district court judge is handling those matters. And so in order to do so competently, one has to be very versed in not just criminal law, not just juvenile law, but issues of contract, issues of competency, domestic matters, small claims appeals, things like that. And in order to do that effectively, one has to be versed in not only the procedural law, the substantive law, and the evidentiary law. And those are, you know, there's a lot to go on there. It's very different from, you know, the type of law you're practicing. It's, you know, issues in contract law are not the same issues in criminal law. Issues in juvenile law are not the same issues in criminal law. And so having that experience, I felt like I brought something to the table that those two did. I still feel that way. You know, a lot of individuals that I've represented, when they go into court, you know, a lot of times they're dealing with money, right? Especially on the civil side. And it's a lot of money. In district court, the jurisdictional limit generally is $25,000, between $10,000 and $25,000. That's a lot of money to a lot of people. And so it's important when somebody, say, for example, hires someone to put a roof on their house, pays that individual, say, $20,000. And then by the time we get our first big storm, they've got water pouring in through a corner in their house. And the roof that they just paid that much money for is no good. Now they've got to have somebody come, pay somebody to remove that roof, replace that roof. So what was a $20,000 job is now turned into a $35,000 job or a $40,000 job. And when they come to me, they want that $20,000 back, and they should get it. They did not get the benefit of the bargain. Instead, they had to pay an additional $25,000 to get what they should have gotten for $20,000. So when I sue that individual and we go into court, my client, if the facts and the law support it, is expecting to recover that $20,000 to make them whole. And a lot of times, that's not always what happens. It's a tough decision, certainly, for a judge to say, I'm awarding you $25,000, $20,000, whatever it is. Certainly one party is going to be, you know, the bottom's going to fall out for one party. That's a lot of money to be told you now have to repay it. But that's the hard decision that a judge put in place to make. You know, if we were able to resolve it and we were okay with splitting the baby, as we like to say, you know, $10,000 to me, $12,000 to me, we would have resolved it. But we came to court because we could, and my client feels, and I believe he or she is entitled to the recovery of that money. And again, over my experience these 8 years, I feel as though I'm prepared to sit in that position, to call those balls of strikes competently and fairly, apply the law, and make those tough decisions, you know, especially the ones that are tough, that may not appease somebody. It may upset somebody. And I'm prepared to accept that role. And so that's sort of where I am. Again, I wanted to do it by the time I'm 40. I've got 8 years of good practice, and I made it a purpose to litigate anything and everything that was in before the district court judge. Mainly, I practice a lot of superior court matters now, just because I've sort of elevated my practice. But when it comes down to it, the issues are still the same up in superior court. The consequences might be a little more extreme, more money, more time if you're convicted on a criminal matter. But at the end of the day, it's fairly the same. So that's why I think I'm the right choice.
What is the big difference, Preston, between this side of the bench and that side? You are on this side for your client, and on the other side, you are not. You cannot.
Yeah, you're not beholden to anybody. Exactly.
That's right.
And I thought about that question. I appreciate that, because that's a question I've tried to, you know, fought very hard for myself. And as a lawyer, it's exciting to have an impact in someone's life, to feel like you made a difference, like you accomplished the goal they wanted. And that joy is different in each case. For example, in criminal cases, it's exciting when a person's been wrongfully charged, you know, somebody who's never been involved in the criminal justice system, and all of a sudden something happens and they're charged with a felony or perhaps an assault, you know, and they're very scared and they don't know what to do. They most of them think they're going to jail, you know. And so when you have an opportunity to sit down with them and sort of speak with them about their concerns, and then at the end of the day get it dismissed, that joy, even though for a lawyer who practices, you know, who's practiced something as serious as capital murder and, you know, done cases that are worth, you know, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, just to see that joy, that to me is sort of you know, you appreciate that. Other times, you know, some of the clients, certainly it's not their first rodeo, and they just want to get in, they want you to beat the case and get out. They may not even know your name. And so, you know, that's unfortunate. But things like juvenile law, you know, that's the same thing. Juveniles charged with a criminal offense. I enjoy that because I get to sit down with the kid. You know, I like to meet with the kids without their parents. And I generally tell the parents, I'm just going to take the kid in here and talk to him, because he and I share attorney-client privilege. But at the same time, I like to sit with them and talk with them just about life, about the decisions they're making without mom and dad there, because sometimes they'll say things, you know, you wouldn't otherwise say.
Many times they open up.
Yeah, they'll open up a little more. But, you know, we all were kids. I've been there. You know, I made those choices too. And I like to say, you know, I was there. I made choices. I learned from those choices. And now look where I sit. You can do it too. You know, you mentioned I worked for the treatment court. That's probably one of the most fulfilling things. You know, you see that court is designed to take in what we call high risk, high need individuals. High risk in that you look at their criminal record, and it's a long rap sheet. They've committed a lot of offenses, serious offenses. They're the individuals that you get a plea offer and it's an active sentence. And from an attorney's position, it takes a lot to get an active sentence offered as a plea deal. That generally means you got a pretty bad record. And high need, meaning that they have substance abuse, they have mental health issues that need to be addressed, that have been documented. And so these individuals, where the initial offer might have been jail time, we look at them and say, let's try a different approach, right? We've been sending people to jail for 200 years. Let's just try a little something different. And so treatment court, we take those individuals and they're placed on probation, and it's designed to, instead of addressing violations or non-compliance with probation with jail time, we look for treatment options, treatment responses. And we, you know, it's designed to be completed in about 18 months. Some people have been in it for 3 years. Some people knock it out in 12 months. But I probably shed more tears in those courts and those graduations than any other one, because to find somebody and to take somebody in literally at their rock bottom, you know, where they believe everybody's giving up on them, where they don't trust anybody in the courtroom, and to build that rapport with them, and then see them succeed is awesome. You know, graduations. If you haven't been to a graduation, they're open to the public. You can reach out to our Superior Court Judge's office, find out when it is, and I promise you won't leave them dry. It's an awesome experience.
I would like that experience.
It's awesome.
We're going to check that out. Maybe we'll do a show there one day.
That's an idea.
Sounds like a great idea.
So I have a question, because you've struck my fancy with, you repeatedly have said you wanted to be a judge by 40, which I love. Was there a particular event that caused that? Has it been a lifelong dream? Is there something, because I'm just curious about that.
Well, I talked a lot and didn't even answer Mary's question as to the difference behind the bench. Yeah. I believe there's a different impact you can have from the bench. People look, for example, in juvenile court and drug treatment court. Drug treatment court is designed for that interaction with the judge and the participant. And to see, for example, the impact that Judge Disbrow has in some of these individuals' lives, that's a whole different reward than winning a case and winning this person $50,000. That's rewarding, but for me, it's not as rewarding as sitting down with that juvenile and speaking with him and believing that I or her and having a connection with them, and then finding out that that individual went on to graduate high school and is now wants to become a lawyer or is becoming an engineer. You know, same with drug treatment court. It's, you know, being able to speak with that individual, having that impact on their life, them thanking you for that opportunity, you know, getting their kids back, getting their house, getting a job. To me, to feel like I had some impact as the judge in their life in that way, I think is as gratifying as, you know, winning one of my biggest cases.
I think that, you know, I have experience in my family of people that have run into issues with substance abuse. And to what you're talking about, they could have gone to jail, but instead they went in the route you're saying, treatment and that. And this was a good person. You know, she was a fantastic person. And I wonder, you know, kind of to what you're talking about is where the judicial system, the legal system is at with, are they starting to progress more to that, more open to it as opposed to the punitive side? And is that coming from the district courts on up, or is it top down? What do you think on that?
Well, I think so. From a 30,000 foot view, nationally, I do think it's starting to take more of a hold. I've been to each year, not so much in the past 2 or 3 years, but when Judge Lewis was here handling them, we would go to trainings every year. And you'd find that, you know, you'd go to Houston and you speak with people from California, you speak with people from the Midwest, the South. And I think the desire is to go to this way again, because we've been locking people up forever. And I represent people that, gosh, I mean, they've been locked up and locked up and locked up, and they're still committing the same offense. And then here in Brunswick County, a lot of it has to do with, you know, generational poverty, drugs, things like that. So my clients are just stealing from grandma and selling her property, you know, to Pawn USA, and then going and buying drugs. I'm not saying that's not, you know, I'm not trying to minimize the crime he's making, but grandma wants him to get help, and sending him into jail for 6 months is not going to, you know, when he gets out or she gets out, that's not going to solve the underlying issue. So I do think we are starting to move to this different approach, if you will. And for Brunswick County in particular, it was sort of top down. I mean, I was with Judge Lewis, I was clerking with Judge Lewis when she was really, really big into these courts. I mean, at one point we had mental health court, drug treatment court, alcohol court, we had a PD court, we had a sex offender court. She just believed that the model could apply to just about any sort of individual. And it took somebody like Judge Lewis early on to get those started. I mean, we had to convince a lot of people early on. We had to convince the county commissioners, you know, that this was worth it. Now Judge Disbrow's taken it completely just head first into it, does a great job. I know he believes in it. And there is a track. So the track in Superior Court, again, is high risk, high need. These are the tough ones. We can't put a first-time drug offender in with the high risk, high need, because the science tells us you're going to create a high risk.
Make it worse, if anything, yeah.
Right. There is a track at the district court level for first-time offenders. It's sort of like, I don't know, you've probably heard like Scared Straight.
Oh, I remember that.
Like that. That's sort of the district court track to catch those individuals their first time. And the methodology, what you do and how you address those individuals is a little different than how you address these individuals. You know, you want to shock and awe these individuals down in district court, first-time offenders. You want to make sure that they get the point that this isn't worth it. Whereas, you know, up here in the high-risk, high-need individuals, you're probably dealing with years and years of trauma, you know, 40 years of substance abuse. So it's a different approach. We don't have a district court track. To be honest, if I became a district court judge, I wouldn't even be informed necessarily how to start that and whether that would be, you know, feasible here in Brunswick County. But there are different tracks, and it depends really on whether or not you have the support of the community, the judiciary, the district court, county mayor. It takes a lot of people.
Takes a village.
A lot of chefs in the kitchen to get it going.
Yeah.
Let's move to a little bit different now. You talked about a lot of things. I'm assuming for a minute now that just your drug treatment program is a lot cheaper than putting them in jail. So it's not only saving money, but changing lives.
Yeah, that's one of the benefits that, you know, we use to sell it. Absolutely.
The second question is for you. What's the difference between that and teen court? For our audience, I know from personal experience, but I'm sure many don't.
So teen court, when I say I practice juvenile, generally, you're representing juveniles that have committed similar offenses to what adults commit. And when a juvenile commits an offense, it goes through juvenile justice, Department of Juvenile Justice. And they make a decision, we need to go and file a petition, which is how you get them into court and start the legal action. Or this is a person that would be appropriate to divert, right? Not bring them into the system. And the way they divert them is a lot of times they may send them to teen court. And what that is sort of it's peer court in that the children, the students act as the prosecutors, the students act as the defendants, the students act as the jurors. The defendant, who is the individual who might have gotten in a fight at school, might have gotten caught with some marijuana or something, comes in, and it's really an accountability court, right? You come in, you speak with your defense attorney, and they try to present your case to the kids in a way that, one, accepts responsibility for the conduct, but also gives them some accountability, some sort of, typically a community response, right? They're going to have to themselves attend teen court, be jurors. May have to do some community service or work in the community. It's sort of like that district court drug treatment track, in that we try to catch them early, teach them about what they did, have them admit that, take their accountability, take their licking, and hopefully we won't see them again. And the benefit to it is, again, a lot of those guys and gals, you see them go on to be lawyers, go to law school, things like that. So that's, for me as a lawyer, that's cool.
And very often those people involved in teen court are actually tougher than they would be in went through regular system.
Some of those kids are incredible. I mean, some of the kids that choose to be district attorneys, they will make fine district attorneys one day, should they choose to. They are tough. I mean, I think it serves its purpose.
Yeah, in a teen court, in my experience, they don't let anybody off easy. You're going to pay, and whatever the punishment's going to be, you're going to pay, and they're very good with it.
Yeah, you're going to remember it. I mean, it's certainly intended to have some punitive response. But it's not.
We're moving very, very quickly. The time is flying.
One question that I've been thinking about it all day. I wanted to ask you.
Yes, ma'am.
I have heard you say that you believe in judicial restraint.
Mm-hmm.
Please explain to me how you mean that.
Well, I think that probably used to be a term that many would say, what is judicial restraint? But nowadays, with so many activist judges, right? I mean, that's another term a lot of people hear. And when they hear that, I think what people are referring to is judges who do not follow the law, in that the legislature, right? Say, for example, a criminal law. I mean, the statute's written the way it's written. And if, say, there's a burden of proof with respect to intent, that it was an intentional, willful purpose, as opposed to what we call just strict liability, right? Where there's not any necessary intent. For example, speeding, you might just be speeding all of a sudden and get caught. You didn't intend to go 65 and 35, but you didn't have to. We caught you doing it. And I think when judges sort of impart their personal belief, their desire, they impose something for a particular outcome that is not necessarily supported by the law or the facts, then that is not exercising judicial restraint. That is going beyond what the judge's role is. And so getting back to making the hard decisions, that kind of goes to it. I mean, the law is what the law is, and the facts are what the facts are. I can't change it. My job is to simply make the best decision based on those two that I can, and I intend to do that. Whether one party is happy with it or neither party is happy with it, write your senator, write your congressman. That it is what the law said to do, and that's what I intend to do.
Yeah, I think a big issue with the public right now is not trusting the judicial system and the legal system because of what you're talking about, the activist judges. And do you think that's going to turn back? I'm starting to think it is starting to turn back a little bit.
I do. I think people are starting to see that and see sort of the negative. I mean, it's like, certainly one might feel good if an activist judge makes a ruling that's in my favor, right? For the moment, for the short term, yeah, that's great. But I think in the long term, when you get judges that are doing that, I mean, you're slowly eroding the principles in the system that we have.
Exactly.
And no matter what you think about our system, it's the best in the world. And certainly we have our flaws, but I can assure you that you don't. I don't have experience, but just from reading and seeing the way things are done in other countries, I wouldn't want to be in a system in any other country, not in the court system or in criminal or
I think
civil.
you're right, because I remember Reagan saying democracy is a terrible system until you compare it with everything else.
Yeah, exactly. Right. People.
Well, all I gotta do is look at Canada right now with the protesters and how they're coming down on them and seeing what the judges are. You can't honk your horn anymore.
It's an interesting run up there. I'm glad it's on their side of the border.
Yes.
But yeah.
Two quick questions for you. If people wanted to know more about you or they wanted to help you with your campaign, where could they find that information?
Thank you. They can go to PrestonHiltonForJudge.com or they can go to our Facebook page, Preston Hilton for Judge, on Facebook. And my website, my bio is there, information about the present voting times. If things change, we'll certainly update our website.
Yes, we will.
But PrestonHiltonForJudge.com.
One final question I hit everybody with.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tell us something about you that nobody knows.
I know this is the question.
You knew it was coming.
I didn't sleep last night,
I knew it.
but it's funny because I have pitched it with my wife a little bit, because I'm sort of an introvert by nature. But the best thing that I could come up with, Bill, is when I was younger, 11, 12, 13, I did every sport. I did every sport that I could. And by that time I was doing year-round soccer and year-round swimming. And I lived in Virginia until about 14 years old. So 11, 12, I'm going to go ahead and say 11 and 12-year-old. Might have even been 13, but I was the fastest person in the state of Virginia in the 100 freestyle.
Wow,
I think
that's impressive.
when I was 13 years old, I swam the 100-meter freestyle, I think 53 seconds. And at the time, the world record was 48.
That's impressive.
Wow, that's impressive.
That's great
That's
information.
incredible.
Before we let you go, one more time, if people want to find out more about you and where they can donate, give them the information one more time.
That is PrestonHiltonForJudge.com.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
for having
being
me.
here.
It's a
It's been a
privilege.
great experience. You want to come back again? You got something else to share?
Yes.
Please just get in touch with
Absolutely.
Mary. We'll
Yeah.
get you right on again.
Well, thank you so much.
Where people just hang on there. We're getting into part 2 of All Things Brunswick, but before that, we got to pay a few bills. So in just a few seconds, we'll break off to pay the bills and we'll be back to All Things Brunswick.
I'm Trey Allen, conservative candidate for the North Carolina Supreme Court. As a Marine Corps veteran, practicing attorney, professor of law, and father of 5, I want to pass on the precious freedoms that we inherited to the next generation. For that to happen, we need judges who will faithfully apply our Constitution and our laws, not rewrite them to achieve specific outcomes. If you share my commitment to liberty, please vote Trey Allen in 2022. Paid for by Trey Allen for Justice.
Veteran Awareness, sponsored by You Are Not Alone. Today's average veteran suicide rate is 20 suicides per day. If you or a veteran you know are in a crisis situation, please call 1-800-273-8255. As with most veteran services, this is a confidential and no-cost call. Most importantly, we care. Please call 1-800-273-8255. And thank you for your service.
Judicial elections are more important than ever. We need judges who uphold the Constitution and respect our God-given rights. This is Judge Michael Statting, your conservative candidate for the North Carolina Court of Appeals. I am currently an elected Republican judge and serve the nation as a reservist in the United States Air Force. I am a battle-tested conservative judge with a clear ability to win. That's why I'm asking for your vote in the upcoming election. Remember to vote for Judge Michael Statting, your conservative candidate for the North Carolina Court of Appeals. Paid for by the committee to elect Michael Statting. Michael Statting is a reservist to the United States Air Force. Use of job title does not imply endorsement by the Department of Air Force or the Department of Defense.
This show is also sponsored by Dr. Tony Maglione. Dr. Tony is a cardiologist practicing in Wilmington. He accepts Medicare patients, and his office is located across the street from New Hanover Regional Medical Center at 2032 17th Street. The office number is 202-1071. Dr. Tony is an author whose last book is Rules for Conservative Patriots, and it can be purchased on Amazon. His website is www.drtonymag.com.
Brunswick County. Her name is Katie Maden, and she is going to talk to us about all the wonderful things she's done and what she can add to the position. So you want to introduce her, Mayor?
Yes, I do. Thank you. We have with us Katie Maden, who is running for Clerk of Courts in Brunswick County. She is a lifelong Republican, a longtime resident of Oak Island, where she resides with her husband, Trey, who is also an attorney. She grew up in southeastern Kentucky and spent time every summer at our very own Holden Beach. After graduating law school, she and Trey immediately moved to Brunswick County to start their law careers. She began her career at our courthouse with Judge Ola Lewis, where she served as the Superior Court Trial Court Coordinator for over 2 years. She then transitioned to private practice, where over the course of 7 years, she enjoyed with Richard Green in Holden Beach. She recently began her current role as an assistant prosecutor under our district attorney, John David. And welcome, Katie.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Please tell us why you have decided that you are going to pursue this position as clerk of courts.
Yes, ma'am. So my decision to run for clerk of court, it's always been a position throughout practicing in Brunswick County that's interests me. And we have had the fortune of having Mr. McCallum, who is a licensed attorney, serve in that role. So throughout my practice, I've been in and out of the courthouse here probably almost every day. I'm in that courthouse of some capacity. So, and also practicing before Mr. McCallum through various hearings in which he presided over, I feel like it's vital for Brunswick County to continue to have an attorney in that role. It is very, wouldn't say unique. If you look at all of the counties in North Carolina, the top 5 most populated counties, a majority of those clerk of courts are attorneys. So I think the trend is leading towards attorneys serving in that role because it's a dual role, what I like to call a mix between a judicial role and an administrative role. So I feel like I'm the candidate that's most uniquely qualified to serve in that role, being an attorney, and also with my administrative experience with Judge Lewis and through my practice and administrative roles that I serve there.
For someone who doesn't know, what is a clerk of court?
That's a good question. And when I tell people I'm running for clerk of court, that is the first question that I get is, what does the clerk of court actually do? And the best way that I can explain it is that dual role. First and foremost, you're a judge with certain areas of the law, and then you also are the administrator of the courthouse. So the clerk of court has what we call exclusive jurisdiction, which means certain matters have to be filed before the clerk of court, and I'm going to refer to he because it's currently Mr. McCallum presides over them. So for example, estate matters, filing an estate, administering an estate, trust issues. So when you file an estate, that's what most people think is just administering probate, dividing the assets and moving on. But you actually run into multiple issues when it comes to estate proceedings. You will have, for example, 2 competing wills. People racing to the courthouse saying, here's a will for mom, I got a will for mom, which one stands? You also have people that pass away without a will, determining who should be the executor. You also have, unfortunately, minors that may pass away and have to administer their estate. So yes, you do have the simple aspect of administering some estates, but there's also some really hard decisions that need to be made with estates. There's also another area, what we call special proceedings. Those are matters such as partition actions. If you have family members that inherited a property, they're all fighting over who gets what, there can be a filing at the clerk of court's office and it's divided up or sold and the assets split. And I actually served as a commissioner in special proceeding actions. I was appointed by Mr. McCallum to be an outsider, an investigator, to do a title search, look at the property and help determine who should or how that property should be divided. We also have what's called incompetency determinations and guardianship hearings. The best way to describe that is an elderly person gets diagnosed with dementia, can no longer maintain their own affairs. You file that before the clerk, they make an incompetency determination, and then they move on to appoint a guardian. That's another matter that's exclusively heard before the court. And I also served as a role as guardian ad litem. I was appointed by the court to, again, be that independent investigator to determine, do we have enough evidence to declare this person incompetent? And if we do, who's in the best role to be that guardian? So even though they're not matters that you typically think of in court, these are matters that really matter to a family and are really important matters at a really hard time in most people's life. There's also adoptions, certain adoptions the clerk presides over. So those are just kind of a rundown of just the judge aspect of the clerk.
And just to clarify that, the clerk of courts is actually making that decision and not just sending it off to a superior judge or a district
Correct.
judge.
The clerk of court makes that decision. So those are matters that have to, by law, be filed in the clerk of court's office, heard by the clerk. Yep.
That's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, it is.
But many hats, many
Yes.
hats.
It is many hats. And I think a lot of people don't understand that judicial aspect of the role of the clerk, but you also do have that administrative role to where you manage the courthouse, you manage the staff, you manage the money that's coming in, and you're in charge of the thousands of files that are in our courthouse. So it is a dual
Do
role.
you assign the judges to their courts?
No, I do not do that.
Okay.
That is all determined by the judges. They kind of make their own schedule. I'm there to assist them too in any way. Obviously, we have a clerk in every courtroom, both civil and criminal. So that would be my responsibility to make sure that clerk's properly trained, that they know how to assist the judges, because our goal at the courthouse is to keep everything moving. The worst thing we can do is find where we can't have court. We don't have a clerk that may not be trained in that area. If something happens to another clerk, we always.
So you had mentioned earlier that you're an attorney, but are there other clerks that aren't attorneys? I would think you'd almost have to be because you're handling legal matters, right? Is that?
It's not a requirement to be
It's
an
not,
attorney.
okay.
It is not. Friend and your be attorneys, because you are in that. These hearings for the clerk are treated just like a hearing before any other judge. The rules of evidence apply. The way evidence is introduced is applied. So if you make a wrong decision, it really could have an effect not only on a family, but someone could appeal that matter, and then it would go up to Superior Court where it would be heard before Judge Disbrow. So if you don't have good decisions or correct decisions at this level, you're going to backlog the Superior Court calendar. So it's all about efficiently moving things.
I was talking to one of the General Assembly people, and I asked them why there was no specific definition of what role you need as far as your requirements. And the answer to me, when he said to me, was interesting. He said, we have too many counties in this state that are so sparse and not actually don't have a lot of money. They probably couldn't get an attorney to sit in that role, and that's the reason they haven't gone that way. So what you're saying is, the trend is where you can, you should.
That's where it's going, especially in these heavy populated counties. Even Columbus County, their clerk of court is an attorney. And especially Brunswick County, pretty soon we're going to be one of the most populated counties in the state of North Carolina.
We are growing.
Yes, we are. And to keep up with that growth and the demand, and to be able to interpret laws as they come down and to quickly move things, it is crucial to have an attorney in that role.
I think that this is definitely something that the legislature needs to address. I think the criteria needs to change for this position.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And I understand what Bill's saying too, is with clerks of court, you have one for every county. With judges and district attorneys, they're more districts. So when you have those small counties, they can preside over multiple counties and you still have that attorney figure, but it's not really feasible in necessarily every county in North Carolina. So I understand the reasoning behind it. But I still feel like it's very important that we make that change.
I almost think it's critical from my personal view. I mean, I'm an intelligent person, but I don't know the law. Stop. I knew you were going to, I knew as soon as it left my mouth, I was waiting for him to say that. But I couldn't handle, I mean, I could make a decision, but it may not be the right one because the law might be something I don't understand. I would almost think you'd have to be an attorney.
You know, for an example of what I'm talking about, I used to live in Chowan County, which is up the northeast part of the state, and the total population of the county is 14,000 people.
Mhm.
So when you get that small, the chance,
Sure.
there's not a lot of attorneys working there to begin with, and they're handling all the other cases. You know, it's very difficult to find someone who's qualified as, you know, meeting the requirements that we're talking about. So I understand.
I understand both sides too, but
Yeah,
it's
but,
just,
you know, my solution to that might be combine some counties under a clerk.
well, there you go.
I don't have that power.
Maybe you should. But no, if I'm elected as clerk, my goal is to preside over as many hearings as possible. With having a law degree, I will be able to look at files and we can even make a determination. Say you have a very simple, straightforward foreclosure, or you have a very contested foreclosure where there's a bunch of filings by attorneys on each side. Those easy standard foreclosures, I could delegate to another clerk and I could hear the more complex matter. So we ultimately can have 2 sessions going at the same time to help these dockets moving, because with COVID and the foreclosure backlog that's been created, we're going to need a solution to kind of keep things moving forward, and to be able to evaluate cases and make those determinations, I think will be very beneficial to our county.
Is there a big backlog right now?
There's, it's kind of starting to pick back up, but I feel like what I'm seeing is that banks are kind of being lenient with people, still trying to give them the option to get current, which is great.
Great.
But it's coming.
Yeah, but if you don't realize, until Judge Newby took over January 1st of last year, there was nothing going on in any courts in the state.
Right.
And he's the one that reopened the gates, but there was a
Yeah.
backlog they've been cleaning as best they possibly can.
That's correct. And our clerks have been great throughout all of this. Just having to juggle with COVID, and then also this big courthouse renovation that Jim's done a wonderful job on. We have a beautiful new courthouse. We finally have all the room that we need to spread out. We're not all crunched on top of each other, and we have enough courtrooms to keep things moving. We can have multiple sessions of court going on. So,
And it's built for the future, not just for the present.
it really is. We have room to grow, and
And I think we should give credit to the county commissioners for having that
Absolutely.
foresight to do that.
absolutely.
I have a question for you on the clerk of court. Now, aside from the fact that you obviously have to put a clerk every time the judge is there, how big is your office or the clerk of court's office other than that?
So there's actually, the clerk's office is divided into 3 departments, primarily your criminal clerks, your civil clerks, and then your estate and your special proceedings. Not sure of the exact number, but I think we're around 50 individual clerks. You also have your administrative clerks. You have a clerk that's just strictly bookkeeping and records. So there's about 50, I want to say women. There are some men that work there, but it is a majority of women clerks, but it's a great group. A few of them have been there for a very long time.
I know visiting that office is an experience. It just amazes me because they are so extremely busy, and they are at the same time so efficient.
They are, and they're very knowledgeable. I was told when I first started practicing law, your best friend should be the clerks, because they will tell you when you're wrong and they will help you out. And to this day, if I get questioned by a clerk, they're probably right. You know, they know more than a lot of attorneys.
So, Katie, this is your home now, yours, and I noticed that your husband has a practice in Southport.
Yes, ma'am.
And so you intend to be here for quite some time.
Yes, ma'am. We're not going anywhere. Like my Iowa State, Brunswick County is always a special place. And I always knew I wanted to be back here, but I just did not think I would have the opportunity so quickly out of law school. And my husband actually graduated a year ahead of me and had an opportunity. And once I graduated, I actually came and I just sat in our courthouse, you know, just to watch court going on and hoping that somebody would hire me. And I ran into Judge Ola, and
you could sit there and absorb it all as it's going on around you.
yeah, and I ran into Judge Ola opportunity, and I felt like higher power helped in all of that. So
Did that work the next time I go to training? We sit there and absorb what's going on rather than working out
I
on
mean,
that.
you don't already?
You were very fortunate to have known her and worked for her.
Yes, ma'am.
She was the best.
She was.
The absolute best. So,
And she helped me start kind of the administrative side of what's needed in the clerk's office. I was in charge of all the civil superior court calendaring and judge assignments, because superior court, your judges kind of rotate around. So like district court, we have our set of judges and they move throughout the 3 counties, but we may have a judge from the west of the state in Superior Court. So I was in charge of all of that, in charge of monitoring the cases to make sure they were moving quickly, that we were opening and closing them within a certain period of time, and also in charge of the mediated settlement conference. So we would try and mediate cases to get them to resolve quicker. And I compiled all that data, sent it to the state. And I also helped with some federal grant writing for our treatment courts to make sure we had funding.
Are you involved in the treatment in the team court as a clerk of courts at all or not?
You are not, but you provide the services to keep those operations running. With the drug court, you have to have a clerk in there. You have to have bailiffs in there. Same thing with teen court. And a lot of these courts are after hours. So our clerks that stay to help out with these courts and the bailiffs, they're vital to those programs being successful, because our drug court starts, most people work. So we want to be able to allow them to work while they're going through their recovery process. So that court would maybe start 5:30, 6 o'clock, and teen courts in the evening as well. And everyone's there ready to volunteer their time to help.
You said before that sometimes you pick up a judge from the far side of the state.
In Superior Court, and sometimes they will come from different areas.
Is there a specific reason why, or just rotation, or what? Or maybe conflict of interest?
I'm not the best person to answer that question, but it's usually just where the needs are. And I don't think there's necessarily a rhyme or reason to it all. I'm sure there is, but I'm not privy to it.
You might get some backup. With the backlog, you might get backup.
Yeah, maybe. Like I believe a couple weeks ago when we had our meeting, the Honorable Judge Disbrow couldn't be here because he was in Johnston County, I believe. So you just kind of get sent where they send you.
Good.
All right, so now we get to one of my favorite.
I knew it was
a couple of
coming.
my favorite questions. First of all, if people want to know more about you and how to either read about you, or even donate to your campaign, how do they do that?
I have a website, katieforclerk.com. I'm also on Facebook, Katie Maden for Clerk, and you can find out a little bit more about me on those pages. I also have information on there, a little bit more about my background and some things that I want to change in the office should I be elected as clerk of court.
That's an interesting question. What do you want
Yeah,
to know?
I was just going to say that. Well, now you got to tell us what those are.
That part of it. Okay.
So, you know, like I stated, a lot of the times that people come to the courthouse, it's not necessarily the best time of their life. And I always have been raised with the motto, just treat people how you want to be treated. First and foremost, I want to make sure our clerks are courteous, that they listen, and that they help to the extent that they can without crossing that fine line of giving legal advice. But with all the shifting of the courthouse, you know, I believe our customer service can improve a little bit, just making sure that phones are getting answered. I also think we can create an online portal to have a little bit more information on there for the public about necessary, you know, filings or paperwork that you may need. Even have a list of local attorneys that, you know, a lot of calls we get at the clerk's office is, I need an attorney, who should it be? Well, we can't recommend anybody, but, you know, put a list up there. Also be able to maybe create an online portal where you can submit questions and have somebody on the other end just typing information back and forth. Also have ability to maybe make appointments online. That way we can block off time in our schedule as clerks to be able to have, you know, specific times to answer questions or have face-to-face meetings instead of this continual door into the clerk's office. I also want to be able to cross-train our clerks. You know, certain areas of the law, especially juvenile, for example, it's very specific. The filings are very different than a lot of your other standard procedure. And to be able to train multiple clerks that if a clerk gets sick or decides to move on to another employment position, that we can always keep things moving. So cross-training our clerks, I think, is very important. And also having all of our clerks be able to answer kind of those most frequently asked questions, those top 25 questions that we're constantly answering the phone about. But instead of saying, let me transfer you to estates or transfer you to criminal, make sure they all kind of have a basic knowledge of what our citizens usually need.
That's
yeah, I like that a lot.
Now
Yeah.
we get back to the question I was planning before you open up a whole new area.
Notice we always chuckle when he goes there.
One thing I ask every guest, the last thing they get to answer for us is, tell us something about you that nobody knows that you can say in a family show.
Wow.
So growing up, I was an avid clarinet player. I don't play as much as I used to, but I still can play a little bit. And I also am a pretty good water skier.
Wow.
We get you with
What
Joe
is your
Westbrook, who plays the guitar.
Yeah.
We have clarinet, we got a guitar, we
Yeah.
see a piano player in the legal
What is your favorite song to play with the clarinet?
Sometimes it may be in the summer. Naturally, some Christmas tunes.
Really? Okay. I like it.
Yeah, a piece of music. You know, really good. Just pulling stuff off of memory.
Well, I've always thought the clarinet should be more in rock music, just for the record. That and the cello.
There you go.
Before we let you go, one more time, if people want to know more about you, they want to donate, where do they go?
KatieForClerk.com, KATIE for clerk.com, and then Katie Maden for clerk on Facebook.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming.
Katie, for coming
Thank
this
you guys.
evening.
I really appreciate hearing me speak to your audience.
And, you know, as we tell everyone, if there's something else you want to come back and talk about, just get in touch with Mary, because she's the brain and we're just the good looking part of it. She's our brain operator.
But she's got to bring the clarinet if she.
And she has
I
to
can
bring
do
the
that.
clarinet. I
would like to hear
You
that,
have to
yes.
play a tune, you know, earn your
Create a
keep.
little intro song for us.
There you
maybe.
go.
Hey, I like
You
it.
see? We got a book.
I'll bring my guitar. We'll do it.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
there
I
we
like
go.
With that, TK, we'll take a little break for a couple of minutes and then we'll come back and we'll close the show down with a couple of discussions of what we got left to talk about. So thank you again and hang on there.
Our founders expected judges to apply, not make, our laws. I'm Trey Allen, conservative candidate for the North Carolina Supreme Court. More than 20 years ago, I began my legal career by joining the Marine Corps and taking an oath to support and defend the United States Constitution. As a justice on our state Supreme Court, I will continue to protect the Constitution by basing my rulings on the founders' intent, not my personal views. Paid for by Trey Allen for Justice.
We need judges who serve we the people, not self-interested career politicians. This is Jenny Statting, wife of Judge Michael Statting, your conservative candidate for North Carolina Court of Appeals. Michael is a former prosecutor, sitting Republican judge, and a reservist in the United States Air Force. Michael is a lifelong public servant. That is why I'm asking you to remember to vote for Judge Michael Statting, your conservative candidate for North Carolina Court of Appeals. Paid for by the committee to elect Michael Statting. Michael Statting is a reservist for the United States Air Force. Use of job title does not imply endorsement by the Department of Air Force or the Department of Defense.
Veteran Awareness, sponsored by You Are Not Alone. Today's average veteran suicide rate is 20 suicides per day. If you or a veteran you know are in a crisis situation, please call 1-800-273-8255. As with most veteran services, this is a confidential and no-cost call. Most importantly, we care. Please call 1-800-273-8255. And thank you for your service.
This show is also sponsored by Dr. Tony Maglione. Dr. Tony is a cardiologist practicing in Wilmington. He accepts Medicare patients, and his office is located across the street from New Hanover Regional Medical Center at 2032 17th Street. The office number is 202-1071. Dr. Tony.
You know, for those who haven't caught what's going on, last week, the state Supreme Court in a 4-3 decision on partisan lines, Democrat versus Republican, voted to throw out all the district maps for the state that were drawn by the Republicans, and they gave them until the 18th to come up with new maps. So everything is up in the air again. We have no idea what's going to happen. The General Assembly is working on it. What they're going to come back with, will they accept it or not? So your thoughts?
It's just going to be an ongoing thing, I think, where no one's ever going to be totally happy with it, right? But when the judges start becoming involved in the process, they're making the decisions, which is never a good thing.
You know, from my viewpoint, I'm going to point out this is another reason why we say 3-2-1. to control what's going on in the courts.
Yes.
We need 3 people in the General Assembly to give us a supermajority, 2 people in the state Senate to give us a majority, and one of the 2 vacant seats coming up, or one of the 2 seats up for re-election in the Supreme Court. And this can be stopped.
Right.
Because until we're going to have this every time, there's an old line, sue till you're blue.
Until we fix it.
And they're going to keep suing and suing. I'll give you another example what's going on. Voter ID. Now, we made a constitutional amendment on this state about that, and it's real. There are 3 court cases going on still about voter ID. 2 of them are in the state courts, one's in the Supreme Court, again at the federal level. And they're going to keep suing and suing to delay getting voter ID in, though 60% of the state approved it in a constitutional amendment. Doesn't seem to count.
No.
Yeah,
And
60% is a
ultimately,
big number.
when you think about it, folks, remember the end of the game lies with the judge. So when you vote this November, make sure you vote the entire ballot. Go to the very end and vote for your judges.
And school board, all those people at the end of that line. And I would give you an example, going back to the 2020 election, in Brunswick County, there were 9,900 people who voted for the presidential line and never bothered voting when we get to the bottom of the line for judges.
Exactly.
And we're only talking about 96 or 97,000 in the county voted. So we're talking more than 10% never finished the ballot. And that's critical if we're going to keep winning and moving things along in a way we need to.
Absolutely.
And as I've always, and we talked about this last summer, I remember on the show, where my contention is always that the lower elections are more important than even the presidential. They're going to have more effect on your life, whether it's from the state level, local, county, all of them. They have a far more direct impact on your life than anything the presidential, or for that matter, honestly, even the Senate or House will do. So it is important to vote the entire ballot because it does affect you.
Well, this midterm election is very important. Just remember 3, 2, 1.
We've actually reached that point where we have about a minute left of the show. And we want to thank you for tuning into All Things Brunswick on a Tuesday evening from 6 to 7. You can watch us all week by just tuning back in again every time you want, or go to YouTube and watch our wonderful faces doing this over and over and over again. Next week, we have a real treat for you. The NCGOP chairman, Michael Watley, is coming on our show at 6 o'clock, and he's going to be talking to us. He'd probably be on the phone rather than in person because he's a busy man. But we have a lot to ask him with everything going on in the state, and he's a great person to listen to. So until then, stay tuned, and we'll see you next week.
And we also have the Brunswick County TARS, who will be here in person.
Yes, that's true.
Thank you for tuning in.
I don't want to forget the talk.
And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. God bless the USA.
Bringing you the best local talk radio shows, Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 FM, WFBT, Carolina Beach.